it would be a little unkind to present this expedition without a little friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Universal's House of Horrors, a place of monsters that is one of the strangest tales ever told. I think it will thrill you, it may shock you, it might even horrify you. So, if any of you feel the monsters are too scary, now is your chance to, well, happy Halloween. For decades, no movie studio was more synonymous with horror than Universal Studios. They defined the genre and created on-screen versions of characters that over 100 years later are a staple throughout the world. For Universal Studios theme parks, the monsters are often there, but never the stars of the show. But for a short time in Hollywood, they would be. A haunted maze permanent walkthrough that celebrated the classics that started it all. An attraction that evolved over the years from something much more terrifying. Wait, this Halloween expedition doesn't begin with the Universal monsters. We're gonna get there, but it does start in one of the spookiest places imaginable, home of many horrors, at least for me, London Victoria train station.
Victoria Station, it's just a cut above.
Victoria Station Restaurant opened at Universal Studios Hollywood in 1976. Inviting those who visited to enjoy lunch or dinner in London with a recreation of the Victoria train station. Inside, they aim to give you the feeling that you may bump into Sherlock Holmes, meet under the clock which hung above the lounge like so many had done in London, or dine in railroad cars. The four-sided clock and the arrival board were originals from the real Victoria Station, and inside featured an extensive collection of antique from British railroading, including cars from the Flying Scotsman. Food included prime rib, sirloin steaks, barbecue ribs, all the British essentials. Or you could stock up from the salad bar along with stop into a restaurant within a restaurant called Thomas Lord's Pub. The new restaurant right at the entrance of Universal Studios Hollywood will become the hotspot of the park where you never knew who you would bump into. This was definitely no ghost train, and all that detail was not put in just for diners' pleasure. It would also be a place that they could use as a TV and movie filming location. The Hollywood Victoria Station restaurant was not unique. It was part of a chain of restaurants that started in 1969 and had over 100 restaurants at its most popular. Of course, this is Expedition Theme Park, and I'm saving that full history for an episode of Expedition Restaurants. However, all you need to know right now is that the Victoria Station restaurant was incredibly popular during the 70s, and the Universal Studios version was no different. The Victoria Station restaurant remained at the park for 20 years, an icon at the entrance, and survived even when the company who operated the chain went bankrupt in 1986. What does it really have to do with horror? Well, nothing, other than the ghostly nature of the real one or my own personal horrors there. Now, Paddington, that's where it's at. Euston, Wait, okay, Halloween, monsters. Let's get back on track. Victoria Station restaurant will be the setting where our story into monsters begins. So, time for some monsters. Well, not those monsters. After Victoria Station closed in 1997, it was time for a new themed restaurant to move in, and with it came not only monsters, but heroes. Superheroes. An eatery to offer a chance to bulk with the Hulk. It was the 90s, and rightly so, themed restaurants were all the rage. Fries really taste better when you have some random memorabilia hanging above you. It's just science. For the grand opening of Marvel Mania, Spider-Man walked a wire from the top of the Hilton Hotel to the restaurant during a midst of explosions. Hundreds, even thousands of people a day were coming to dine at the rethemed restaurant. It was so popular that a version of the restaurant was set to open at Universal's upcoming Islands of Adventure, before becoming a 5-restaurant chain in the future throughout the US. The joint venture between Universal, Marvel, and Planet Hollywood would offer upscale dining with a slice of fun. Originally, the restaurant was set to open in the end of 1997 in the former Victoria Station space, but was delayed until February 1998. If you imagined a fully themed Marvel Planet Hollywood, this would be it. As you entered through a decompression chamber, life-size figures of heroes greeted you as Marvel artifacts covered all the walls. It took 4 years to design and build this incredible themed restaurant. Even the menus were designed to look like comic books. Just over a year later, by September 1999, the Marvel Mania would close forever. While Marvel Mania was popular, Planet Hollywood were in trouble and declared bankruptcy, cancelling all plans to continue the franchise and forced the closure of the Universal Hollywood restaurant. Throughout the US, the novelty of themed restaurants had dropped off a little and they had expanded too quickly. I am still rooting for the Marvel concept to return, and I am team themed restaurant forever. What it left with the closure was a huge space that now would be vacant. It was time for the monsters. It's alive! It's alive! No, not yet. Way scarier than that. On June 10th, 2000, a true horror movie would come to Universal Hollywood. Located just on the first floor of the restaurant, a walkthrough experience would be constructed.
It's a time machine, you idiot. Chickens go in, pies come out.
This absolutely terrifying walkthrough will be built around the cruel story of Mrs. Tweedy, who would kill and cook any chickens who were not able to lay eggs. You were that chicken. As you entered, you would see set models and character skeletons used in the making of the 2000 horror film made in partnership between Aardman Animations and DreamWorks. One newspaper reported that the red carpet opening for the Chicken Run maze featured celebrity poultry like Chicken Little. There is no word if these famous other chickens were turned into pies or escaped to make a rival chicken film at Disney. A newspaper from the time said that Chicken Run Maze benefits from the experience its design team gleaned in creating mazes for Halloween Horror Nights. There are dark crawl-through spaces and moments of real suspense as the chicken almost become pies in the pie machine. No footage inside the Chicken Run Maze exists online currently, which is likely a good thing to keep its horrors hidden from the world, but the rundown of the attraction went like this. After you saw those movie props, you were sent into the Chicken Run Maze. It wasn't really a maze, it was more like walking a single way to your doom with the chickens. There was a tunnel to crawl through to get out of the coop and into the pie making machine. You had to survive the oven and escape. Like I said, honestly, so terrifying. I can't today believe they still market that movie to children. It only lasted until November 2000 and was in reality made to promote the new movie and aimed at children. Chickens go in, pies come out. The scariest Universal Halloween maze ever to be made was short-lived, but its legacy would scare children forever. Chicken Run Maze would pave the way for a series of movie-themed maze attractions that would follow, each building on the last. The maze would be rethemed to a new Universal movie, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This new version was only open for one Christmas season until January 2001. Next, it was time for a monster to move in its biggest upgrade yet. Universal Studios was ready to dive into its iconic horror history. Finally, a classic Universal movie monster was here. No, still not that one. Not even the Magi could save you now, as in 1999 Universal Studios resurrected one of their iconic original monsters in a new version of The Mummy. The film was a huge hit, grossing over $400 million on an $80 million budget, so in 2001 it was time for the sequel, The Mummy Returns, and for Universal Studios to do what they did best, cross-promote it with a new attraction at the Hollywood Park. The Mummy Returns Chamber of Doom was unwrapped in May 2001, just a few weeks after the movie's release. The maze was reused and refitted with the best version of it yet, which it was billed as an extravagant recreation of the Egyptian ruins from the movie, complete with more than 200 props and costumes seen on the screen. Guests passed through the inner sanctum of the mummy's tomb, encountered Imhotep himself, and navigated burial chambers, a waterfall, and a giant snake. One of the new highlights of this version included a bridge across the upper floor of the former restaurant's lobby that creaked and had characters appear on the sides of it. That's right, this maze even had mummy animatronics. And after you went through, avoiding the scare actors, you ended up spiraling down a slide to the bottom floor and exited. This attraction was really well themed, was a huge upgrade from what was there before, and featured great scare actors throughout. Sadly, the slide didn't last too long, as it caused a backup to exit the attraction, and the attraction's exit was eventually moved to the second floor. While Chicken Run Maze rarely ever had a line, rightfully so in my opinion, the line during the summer for the Mummy's Maze was often huge. Around the same time this opened, the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb was also introduced to the tram tour. Universal was going full mummy. Monitors in the queue area allowed guests to scare those inside the attraction with compressed air, an effect that would later be used in the queue for the Revenge of the Mummy ride in Orlando. The roller coaster, which opened in Orlando first before coming to Hollywood in 2004, would mean it's time for the walk-through maze to change again. Its foundations as a Universal Monster walkthrough exhibit was now set in stone. It closed its doors in January 2004. The Mummy films were all directed by Stephen Sommers, and he was about to have a new Universal Monster movie out. Finally, it was time.
It's alive! It's alive!
Wow, this version of the monster anyway, not the classic ones. Yet.
I want to live!
Van Helsing Fortress Dracula opened on May 7, 2004, based on the Van Helsing film, which released the very same day. This version was much more scare-based and darker than the somewhat family-friendly Mummy version. The attraction opening was mostly overshadowed by the addition of the Mummy ride, but it did have its fans and really set up what was to come next. Inside, guests would meet Professor Van Helsing and Princess Anna Valerius and help them vanquish evil from the world. Themed around Dracula's castle and Van Helsing's fortress, visitors would go through, terrified, as Dracula, the Wolfman, Frankenstein's monsters, and more chased and attacked. These were based on the versions from the new movie, which, are questionable, though that movie is a guilty pleasure. If you're a fan of the horror makeup show in Orlando, you'll definitely recognize this wolf. It wasn't long though, and it was finally the Universal Classic Monsters' time to shine. When Halloween Horror Nights finally returned with a new event at Hollywood in 2006, the Van Helsing walkthrough attraction was loosely rethemed and would become Universal's House of Horrors. The first year was pretty much just the same Van Helsing attraction, but with some classic monsters and non-Universal monsters inside, including Jason, Chucky, Pennywise, Michael, all the big ones. The name Universal's House of Horrors was first used in the theme parks as a haunted house during Halloween Horror Nights 5 in 1995. It celebrated the most famous monsters in horror movie history, followed by a sequel house, the New House of Horrors in 96, Museum of Horror in 97, etc., and variations of this would continue up until 2001. In Orlando at Halloween Horror Nights, however, for their houses, they worked backwards, with after this a Mummy Returns house came in 2001 and a Marvel house in 2002. No Chicken Run Horror Nights house though, luckily. Don't get any ideas. At Universal Hollywood, where the original classic monsters were first created all those years ago, they had featured at the first iterations of Halloween Horror Nights, walk-around characters and shows, but it was finally time for them to have their own attraction. Van Helsing's walkthrough maze would be rethemed fully to the classic monsters, and Universal House of Horrors opened, replacing Van Helsing on March 31st, 2007.
Good.
For this version, much of what was already constructed inside for Van Helsing remained, including Frankenstein's lab. But new additions include the Wolfman's Forest, which used trees taken from the closed E.T. Adventure Queue, along with animatronic that were also repurposed from the E.T. attraction, which had recently closed. You entered the attraction with a timeline of horror movie posters, before a prop exhibit with authentic movie horror props. As you went into the maze, you went through and were greeted by Dracula, into the underground catacombs of Nosferatu, the burial chamber of vampire brides, and into the Phantom's lair. Phantom would eventually come in as a scare actor. Next up was the Mummy, who returned upstairs in a tomb before entering the Good Guy toy factory. Yes, that's right, even Chucky was here. Next up was the Frankenstein's lab, a psycho mirror maze, and a zombie morgue. Through the forest and back into the lab before ending in the slaughterhouse, taking inspiration from the Dawn of the Dead films. There were multiple references throughout to other horror movies, and of course, multiple scare actors. The former restaurant was now branded as Soundstage 13, unlucky for those who entered. House of Horrors, while constructed in a short time period, took what was there in Van Helsing and improved on it, while celebrating the horror history of the studio. Not only that, the attraction would also be used slightly rethemed with more actors every year for Halloween Horror Nights, giving it a 2-for-1 attraction offering, saving Universal money and counting as one of the mazes for that year's Horror Nights, returning with a new theme each year. The House of Horrors walkthrough was popular and would become one of the longest running versions of the experience in Soundstage 13. It took around 8 minutes to walk through, and it offered a new surprise around every corner, recommended only for those over 13. On July 26, 2014, after only 7 years, it was announced that Universal would be closing the House of Horrors forever on September 1, 2014. The final day saw fans coming out for one last run through to see the classic monsters, along with a few others that would chase you through the dark catacombs. The attraction was used for a final time during Halloween Horror Nights that year, when it became Face Off in the Flesh. It will be the last time a Halloween Horror Nights attraction would ever be built in the original Victoria Station restaurant. What began as that British-themed restaurant had seen many changes over the years, from a failed Marvel concept that was supposed to expand around the world to the worst and scariest theme for a walk-through maze ever, being cooked alive into a pie while having to look at absolutely terrifying Aardman creations. The park, though, was about to change, and the entrance to Universal Studios Hollywood would be redone. And on November 25, 2014, the original restaurant location that was most famously remembered and loved as the House of Horrors, along with the nearby Hollywood Photoland and Blues Brothers stage, were demolished to make way for the Universal Studios store expansion. It was no longer alive. Part of this new building that was constructed would be reused as a brand new permanent scare attraction.
Survive the Walking Dead attraction, a new year-round daytime experience at Universal Studios Hollywood.
In the 2010s, theme parks were absolutely obsessed with The Walking Dead. They could not get enough of it, especially at haunt events. After 6 years of different Walking Dead Horror Nights editions, they still wanted more, and in 2016, the permanent Walking Dead attraction opened, which again would be used during Halloween Horror Nights until the daytime walkthrough closed on March 4, 2020. The location today is still used during Halloween Horror Nights, but is not open as a regular permanent attraction.
Dare to face your fears in the all-new House of Horrors.
Universal Studios Hollywood began making walkthrough mazes to promote upcoming movies, on a small budget that could offer something new and show some behind the scenes. It would later pave the way for the classic monsters to get a year-round experience within the Universal parks with the House of Horrors, that even today many still miss. The classic monsters have often been underused throughout the years, rarely seen in shows, and even less so in attractions outside of Halloween Horror Nights. We will always remember you, Creature of the Black Lagoon the musical. Universal Studios created the monsters, and it was the monsters really who made Universal Studios a success. Some of the most iconic characters ever seen on screen, which were never truly given the attractions they deserve. House of Horrors was a great option to have year-round, but it really was just an evolution of a Chicken Run maze that kept being refreshed and never reached the same level of horror as Chicken Run ever again. That would all change though. Finally, after decades of underuse, it would be the monsters' time to shine. Firstly, 2025 will see Horrors Unleash open at Area 15 in Las Vegas. This brand new year-round haunted attraction will feature Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist, Scarecrow the Reaping, Jack the Clown, and of course, the Universal Monsters. Once again, getting a place to scare all year. And Universal's newest theme park celebrates that history with a whole land dedicated to them. The classic monsters were ready to bring you into a new story. A ride with 14 lifelike animatronics showcasing them. A lone bad, friend good, restaurants based on places you have only seen in the movies, smoke-filled streets, and werewolves spinning around. The monsters never stay dead for long. They are always resurrected and reborn. This time, with a whole land dedicated to them. And for us fans of the classics that made Universal Studios, I bid you welcome to our monster-filled future. The monsters are now, well and truly alive, at Universal Studios theme parks.
It's alive! It's alive! In the name of God! Now I know what it feels like to be God!
Happy Halloween. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Expedition Extinct. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to join the expedition. Follow us on social media for updates on upcoming episodes. A special thank you to our Patreons for supporting the channel. We will see you in the fog. And by that, I mean at Epic Universe. Oh, by the way, Chicken Run is great, really.